presentation. So without further ado, Olga, please.
Yeah. Hello everyone, my name is Olga Lasitsky. I'm a Fulbright visiting researcher at Emerson College. It's not introduced.
I'm going to go for cheers.
I want to thank the conference organizers for the invitation and for the opportunity to present and to share with you the first results of my research. It's a great honor for me to be here and I'm very excited. I also want to thank Emerson College for helping me with my research, and its topic is media endarkenment. It's the process counter to enlightenment. And I want to start by showing you a piece of report by the Russian TV channel Russia Today. And I hope it will have video. But we don't have the sound.
I think just turn on, up the volume as much as you can.
Yeah, it might be overriding.
Okay, so. Okay, so I considered what you've just seen to be media endarkenment. And sure, Russia Today couldn't miss the chance to disparage Fox News for this mistake, summarizing that all US media are the same. But the interesting thing is that Russian media behave in the exact same way. And the question is if this all is by design. And to try to answer this question, let me first tell you how I came up with the idea of media endarkenment. I've been working in journalism since 2000, and up until 2007, I worked in the remote Russian regions, here in Siberia in the middle, and in the far east of Russia, in this tiny town, Blagoveshchensk, where I was born. So I have enough experience to explain why Russian people there in these remote regions are endarkened and as a result don't mind living in a totalitarian regime. I created this term in 2009 to explain the state of Russian TV. I was working as a news writer and editor then in this for the national channel NTV. It's there in Moscow. It's Russian letters, but it's NTV. I had a chance to watch how it works from the inside of the media industry. It's bitter to admit, but I too was a part of that system, as all my colleagues were or still are today. And the question is for whom they're working, for the regular viewers like my mom. Her story is quite typical for someone living in remote Russian provinces. My mom still lives in this tiny town Blagoveshchensk in the far east of Russia, and she herself resists any opportunities for enlightenment that she has encountered in her life. By enlightenment, I mean the process of educating oneself and searching for reputable, truthful information, all prompted by a desire to be better informed. So my mom doesn't want to use the hand-me-down computer that my sister gave her. I failed to convince her to use the internet and talk to me via Skype while I'm here, and she doesn't acknowledge any social networks, so the world of Facebook and other social media is closed for her. The only source of information for my mom is the several national channels that she gets for free, and she believes everything that she hears on TV, even though her real life is not as delightful as it appears on the screen of her 2 TV sets, which are constantly on. So when I came to the US and started to watch American TV carefully, I found signs of media endarkenment here as well. So here's my thesis. I contend that The process of media endarkenment is occurring in both countries, and I hypothesize that there is a high probability that media endarkenment exists on purpose in order to make people apathetic, malleable, detached from reality, and thus easier to control. Today I will share with you my concept of media endarkenment, and we will discuss who benefits from this in Russia and in the US, what differences exist between media endarkenment in Russia and in the US, how was it demonstrated itself during the election campaigns in both countries, and why the internet isn't functioning as an antidote. So, media endarkenment. The definition that I'm trying to give it, it's a process of media influence by which both the intellectual level of the viewers and the number of informed citizens decrease. Media endarkenment can be described as a type of propaganda and can be used as an umbrella term for the system of propaganda and manipulation methods connected to the goal of preventing people from being enlightened or to gain knowledge. In my research, I'm focusing on television, and that's a big question in the era of the internet. I'm focusing on television because it is still the most powerful tool that influences people's mind. And the same can be said in America, because according to Nielsen report, the media, in terms of media consumption, TV is still far in the lead. The TV viewing is up to 6 days of time per month. If to compare it with the internet on the computer, which is at 28 hours and a half. In 2010, Russian journalist Yuri Bezelansky wrote, "A TV box is taking us away from the real life. There is no truth in this box, only the illusion of the truth." And it seems like it is in order to make more people in my country fools and morons, in order to make them laugh and forget about their problems. And here in the US, I had a chance to interview the legendary scholar Noam Chomsky, who wrote in 1998 about this, but as an American reality. The goal of a society in which the basic social unit is you and your television set. If the kid next door is hungry, it's not your problem. And if the retired couple next door invests in this, it's badly, and then I'm starving, that's not your problem either. So it seems like the elites who seek to gain the most from media endarkenment just see the majority of the population as nothing but a bewildered herd, as Walter Lippmann wrote in 1922. And a friend of mine, Humphrey Fellow and regional director at the online news agency, Evgeny Kuzmin, who works in the far east of Russia, explained how people there are turned into a bewildered herd. Most TV content is comedy shows, soap operas, and 4-hour-long evening pop concerts. This TV gum makes people spend time next to their sets, chewing news in between criminal series and comedy, having no desire to critically evaluate what and why is said by news anchors. There is another cause of endarkenment as well. There is too much information to choose from. People are lost in numerous websites. And Evgeny touches on how media endarkenment can even be possible in the era of the internet, where when people are able to search any information online and easily enlighten themselves. But obviously the internet isn't functioning as an antidote. Media endarkenment can be categorized into several types. We've examined one of them, which directed towards TV viewers, and touched upon another occurring online. But there is also a type of endarkenment that affects journalists themselves. And to give you an idea of what I mean, I want to show you a short video of the Russian Deputy Minister of Communications and Mass Media, who gave a shocking speech at the annual journalism conference at Moscow State University on February 9th of this year. He was explaining to professors and students what he means in terms of the mission of the journalist. Please watch English subtitles here.
Oh my gosh.
Well, it was a huge scandal, and even though later the deputy minister explained that he was expressing his personal opinion, what you've just heard is the position of a state official anyway. So such government brainwashing in journalists' education plays a large role in this process of media endarkenment in Russia. And this is one of the big differences between media endarkenment in Russia and in the US, and these differences are my next point. And to understand them, let's recall two famous dystopias by George Orwell and Aldous Huxley. Orwell, in his 1984, painted a somber picture of a world where people intimidated and controlled, and it strongly resembles the way people live in Russia. And Brave New World, people are controlled by pleasure. And do you think it resembles the way people live in the US? When the truth are drowned in the sea of useless information and culture becomes more primitive, and that's exactly what happens with the abundance of information on the internet. So now let me depict the media endarkenment in Russia and in the US in terms of Orwell and Huxley's worlds. So in Russia, endarkenment is primarily concerned with the government power. People in power try to keep citizens detached from reality and from each other, keeping silence about what's really going on. For example, in Russia, there are no pre-electoral debates in the same sense that they exist here in the US. Well, de facto debates are held, but the leading presidential candidate has refused to debate with his opponent since 2000. And Russian authorities don't care about public opinion, and that's why techniques are being used for media endarkenment are obvious and crude, like censorship and fabrication. To explain these differences further, I want to compare the coverage of natural disasters by Russian and American TV. In the summer of 2010 in Russia, disastrous wildfires occurred. I was working as a news writer then, and our crew for the national TV. And our crew was dying to tell our viewers what was going on, to mobilize them to join firefighters teams, which couldn't handle the situation on their own. But we were not allowed to tell our viewers that the wildfires approached Moscow and that the smoke already killed several people and that the authorities were not going to evacuate citizens. We were told to cover the story without alarmism. And on the contrary, in February of this year, in Boston area, the blizzard occurred. And I was surprised with the total alarmism radiating from the screen of my TV set. It seemed like the weather forecast was on air non-stop, that the news anchors and commercials in between convinced people to buy and store goods and food and stay safe at home watching TV. And sure, the ratings of these programs were astronomical. And this demonstrates the differences between media endarkenment in Russia and America, because in America it seems like instead of the government power, money, aka ratings, has run out the place on TV. People with money trying to keep the citizens buying, whether hamburgers, cars, or candidates running for president. And probably that's why the recent presidential debates here in the US were not about substance, but about style. Journalists would passionately discuss whether Obama was snarky enough during the third debate, or instead of analyzing why Romney agreed with his challenger, although just a week ago he said absolutely the opposite things. But even such political theater couldn't compete with reality TV here in the US. The popular TLC reality show, Here Comes Honey Boo Boo, got even higher ratings than the Republican National Convention aired on Fox News in the end of August of 2012. So I contend that while the way in which endarkenment is implemented in Russia and in the US is different, when it comes to the political campaigns, the concept works the same in both countries. And this leads us to the final point of my presentation. How did media endarkenment operate during the electoral campaigns? So the Russian and American campaigns of 2012 demonstrated a lack of substance and were full of destructive content. In the US, candidates played the race card, trying to convince voters that skin color should take precedence over personality. Incumbent senator of Massachusetts, Scott Brown, as you all remember, started his first debates with Harvard professor Elizabeth Warren, asking her to prove that she's Native American. In Russia, racism is a big problem as well. In December of 2010, in Moscow, a Slavic football fan was killed by a Caucasian guy. In Russia, the word Caucasian means a dark person from the Caucasian Mountains area. This is not a white person. So, and after this homicide, radical Slavic football fans craved revenge and wanted to take it out on all Caucasians. And government, instead of doing something, just ignored this fact, supposing that the radical group could be a great source of support during the upcoming elections in 2012. And the government was correct. It helped the ruling party to get re-elected. Both campaigns also contained the element of an external enemy. In September of 2012, in Benghazi, an American ambassador was killed, and the Americans felt themselves come together in the face of the external threat. And Obama's opponents took it as his most significant foreign policy failure, blamed him and called on people to unite against the incumbent who couldn't handle the situation. Alternately, the Russian authorities at the same time struggled with the US State Department and NATO as an external threat. So the Russian authorities think that NATO is too close to the Russian borders and that the US State Department was bribing Russian protesters. And there were plenty of biased coverage of both campaigns, and Fox News showed some of the most outrageous examples of propaganda. The bias of its news and talk shows at that time was so obvious and clumsy that it strongly reminded me of Soviet-style propaganda. But at the same time, here in the US, everybody can easily switch the channel and get a completely opposite point of view, while in Russia, every channel would broadcast the same opinion, the government's. In closing, I'd like to share a little story with you. After the presidential election, I interviewed a journalist who supports the Republican Party, a senior editor for Fortune magazine, Nina Easton, and she shared an interesting perspective on why the GOP was defeated. She told me that the Republicans just didn't notice that the country has changed and that its population has become extremely diverse. And it made me think that probably Republicans just became victims of self-endarkenment and just believed in the false reality built by themselves, much like the Russian authorities. They too lost a sense of reality and just didn't notice that during the last few years, a whole new class of society, which is immune to media endarkenment, grew up in Russia. These people don't watch TV anymore, and instead of being detached from each other, they get together through social networks. And that's how, in the end of 2011, the huge protests occurred in Russia. They became the largest countrywide rallies in Russian history since the fall of the USSR. But people were not heard. Putin was re-elected as president for his third term in March of 2012, and protesters just gave up and came back to their TV sets and computers. So, as you see, the process of media endarkenment is really occurring in both countries, and sometimes media endarkenment exists on purpose to retain power for the political and economic elites. But in my opinion, media endarkenment has a pernicious influence on people's minds, and sure, it should be stopped. But only the process of enlightenment of viewers and journalists can become an antidote. And until this phenomenon is consciously revealed, described, and discussed, it will be very difficult to pull back the veil of media endarkenment in Russia, in the US, and elsewhere in order to bring media back to their essential role, which is contributing to the support of human rights and enlightenment. Thank you so much. If you have any questions.
Would you like to take a question?
Yes, yeah. So
Can I-
while we're doing the question phase, can we set up for our next presentation?
Me?
Yes,
Okay.
please. So,
Questions?
yes, questions?
I really want to appreciate you, not only that you're so young and so well spoken, I have a real admiration, but can you really keep up with this momentum of your belief that media should change the public opinion and it should be for the good? Do you really believe that 9/11 was created by Muslims?
Me?
Yeah, because you're a journalist. See, as much as you can blame the Fox News for being foxy, we also should blame ourselves that we are not really trying to solve any human dignified problem. I'll also ask another question. Since you cannot say, do you read a website called Scholars for 9/11 Truth? No, you don't. I know that.
Yeah.
Scholars for 9/11 Truth is a website of university professors. There the truth is written, but we do not read the truth where it is written.
And this is the big problem with it. It has something to do with the endarkenment on the internet.
Well, please do not call it endarkment. Please call it that media are liars, and that I have come here to write a thesis about it. I'm as much inspired by your presentation because one time I was young too. And I couldn't do anything, but I'm still keeping my motivation to support where the right is. And yes, this country has gone through so much of changes that it's going through a decline. There are so many professors here who understand this, but do not have a vocabulary it takes to present it in the highest echelon of the university professors. I really appreciate this thing as much as I'm very motivated. You're coming close to me, I'm very happy about it. But I'm just saying that here is an